Hi everyone, today we're going to do something like this. Okay, so to do this, we need to go outside and find some stones. We're looking for medium-sized stones. It can even be one like this. It doesn't matter whether there's snow, rain, summer or winter. Okay, so we throw it. We don't worry about possible small losses. After a few tries, we should get a bit lucky, and the stone should land on an orbit. We pause time, enlarge it and throw it back to Earth. If we're lucky again, it should hit some city, and the effect should look similar to this. Okay, but seriously now, let's move on to the real tutorial. We load our footage into the settings. Here, I set it to 24 frames per second. 32-bit. We start with tracking. We choose Camera Tracker, Auto Track. After tracking, we hit Solve and look at the error. A result below 1 is always going to be quite good. We leave the origin and orientation as is. We take export and our scene is ready. Now we can take a look at how everything looks. In our scene, we don't actually have any clouds right now. So I'm just going to add some. If you're interested, you can record your own clouds or buy them from my pack. In order for everything to match, we need to bring all the different color spaces into one common working space. I'm setting input gamma to 2.2 here. That's kind of the standard. Output is DaVinci wide gamut / linear. We can still play with the sliders here, but we'll come back to that later. Now we copy our color space, and on the output we do the reverse. We convert everything back. We connect it, and we have identical colors as we started with. For all the assets we're going to bring in, we also attach this color space transform. Thanks to that, everything will live in the same color space and should fit together much better. Now we open our 3D scene, place the clouds. Best to put them as far away as possible. After all, clouds are far away. We can also scale the whole scene down a bit. Why keep it so huge? We do some initial color correction. Best to match the sky color first. Now masking. We mask just the bottom part. We need to adjust soft edge a little. As you can see, it doesn't match very well yet. So we go back to color correction and tweak it again, until everything roughly fits together. Now that we have that, we load our Meteor. You can of course download a Meteor from some free asset sites, but if you're interested, feel free to check my website too. We have tons of explosion/impact packs. Right now, I'm just using one I prepared earlier. I have some comets here that come in and fly out, some from the side. We want something that's coming straight toward us. We bring it in. We create a new 3D composition. This makes things easier later than having everything in one comp. We connect the camera. Now we create another composition and merge everything together. We copy the point cloud. It can be useful later when placing other elements. Now we create a new image plane 3D and connect it to our merge. We position it where it feels right, preferably quite far away. Of course, we scale it up. A good trick is also to move the pivot to the very bottom. Gives much better control when rotating around an axis. We can mask it, of course, because the meteor should hit the ground. The meteor disappears a bit too quickly, so we'll need to adjust the timing. A good tool for that is Time Stretcher. We set source time to match our composition frame numbers exactly. Frame 0 to 0, frame 80 to 80, etc. That way we keep the original animation timing. We check where the animation ends, best to do it on the spline. We select the line and ease it. Now, instead of disappearing abruptly, the animation will slow down gradually. We set it to blend mode. I think that's plenty for now. Same thing if you want explosions. Feel free to check my website. There are many explosions available. I'm just going to use a few I already have. We combine effects so it looks nice. We pick the asset that fits best. It's best to put one color space transform at the very bottom of the chain instead of attaching it to every single file. Let's do a little cleanup. We copy the image plane 3D and connect it to our 3D comp. We bring it a bit closer. We want the explosion in front. We flip it if needed. We position it in the scene so everything looks good together. As you can see, the explosion appears before the comet hits, so we keyframe its timing to match properly. We load more objects and on the same principle build whatever we like. Remember that in the 3D scene, you cannot put everything at the exact same position. Otherwise, things will clip through each other. You need proper depth ordering. Something in front, something behind. We can mask here to create the illusion that debris is flying out of the fireball. The mask can, of course, be animated too. Next, assets. We place them in 3D and next assets. All these assets are available for download on my site. Of course, you can use your own. I know they're available on other websites too, but trust me, mine are the cheapest because I made them myself. If the scene starts to lag, we can cache it. It's worth doing because then we can play everything back almost without waiting. So we choose disk cache and pre-render. We can do the same with all finished scenes. Back to the explosion, we can add a deform that creates our shockwave. We animate the whole thing. We get something nice like this. Same way again. We load more resources. Now we have a huge shockwave. We soften it a bit with Luma key. We add a mask. We can animate that mask too. Sometimes things get connected wrong. It's good to double check. The farther something is, the faster it should disappear. So we play a little with color correction to match that. A good way is to play with gain in the color corrector. The explosion should be much brighter than the surroundings, but still give the feeling of distance. For that purpose, we render out our material. We copy the whole 3D scene, connect the camera and merge again. We can simply duplicate image planes and bring them into the scene. Now we place our shockwave. We set rotation, position. It goes toward the camera. We tilt it a little. Now we add a very close shockwave, and it looks roughly like this. We can still tweak timing, colors to make it more realistic. I also added a mask here so it doesn't overlap the main explosion, and that's it. We add one more smoke layer. We blend them together and align so they move evenly at the bottom and top. Now we load another shockwave. We can add a few more assets to make it even prettier. We simulate the dust spreading after impact. We do the same on the other side. We can put both sides on one image plane, combine them, and position as we like. Now we add color correction to the Meteor and try to make it look like it's really coming from far away. We set it to pre-multiply. We make distant parts more atmospheric, usually more orange-reddish when entering atmosphere. We tweak color correction on the remaining elements. Now we create depth maps using depth map/z depth. Plus bitmap that follows the Shockwave timing. We change to luminance. We feed it into the mask input. We invert. Now we see the wave really coming toward us. Remember, we still need to animate the mask, otherwise it will stay in place. So we animate the mask. Far limit. And now we can soften/blur it. Shift+S. Once that's done, we can add our dust/debris elements. For that, we open another 3D scene. We copy our merge and camera again, plus color space transform and merge everything. We add very small elements. These are part of my latest pack. They're already grouped. Now we have to place them into the scene. We try to make them go upward. But we see the lighting doesn't match, so we rotate them 180 degrees on Y-axis. We load more assets. For distant parts, small ones are enough. We can create a new, larger background that we scale up. so we don't have to load everything separately. We group them with multi-merge. Makes it much easier later in the scene and when duplicating. We set timing so it starts in the right place. Everything is connected under one image plane 3D. We add some fractal noise so it doesn't look too uniform. And that's one scene done. The rest we connect under another image plane. We position it in 3D space. As you can see, everything matches. Now we need something to offset time speed. We add it and delay it slightly. That way the shockwave spreads and comes closer gradually. We see some very quick flashes here, so we can mask them a bit so it doesn't feel too abrupt and emerges more slowly. We add another image plane 3D. We connect. Remember about the time delay. Always a slight stagger. We position in space, and we continue this way. The closer to camera, the more detailed explosions we need, so we create a new scene and bring in more detailed assets. We copy the previous background. We set it as main input. So merge takes its resolution. We place explosions plus masking. We continue duplicating and only changing time, offset, and position. We duplicate the whole scene again. We can remove the old assets. Now we need even more detailed ones. So I suggest using single files here that we can still group with multi-merge if needed. We can even double merge and mix on multi-merge. of course with proper delay and position in space. We insert so everything sits nicely. If needed, we swap, adjust layers. We duplicate again. We enable everything. We connect our depth map as mask to the main merge with dust elements. Timing will probably be a bit different, so we adjust accordingly. I suggest everyone experiments and finds what looks best to them. Now we add Fog 3D. That creates haze/atmosphere. We set color to roughly match our sky. Linear, far distance, preferably quite large value. We position in the scene so it feels realistic. Of course, a little more color correction. We do a close-up shockwave right into camera. We leave timing. On scale transform, we can animate it to feel more natural. Now we get an impact straight into lens. We connect our mask. We can change blend mode. We slightly desaturate. Don't forget color space transform and color correction. To prevent it appearing too suddenly, we animate blend/opacity. We animate gain as well. We add another fog 3D to the explosion and set it up. We add yet another fog 3D to the explosion. Now we simulate ground/terrain being lifted upward. We mask so it doesn't affect the whole image. Of course, we animate the mask. Now we have the feeling that buildings are actually moving, being lifted. We can add directional blur to enhance the zoom-like effect. I tried to do shadows, but eventually replaced them with something else you'll see later. Those shadows were also animated. We create another image plane and add a bit more detail from mid-ground. Collapsing building, also from our pack. It looks quite nice. We composite it with the building render. We can animate it a little so it doesn't pop in instantly. Of course, color correction, so it matches surroundings. Now we see the building collapsing, and then the shockwave hits. We mask a bit because the shockwave passes a little earlier. I have different animations here, but we'll use collapsing buildings as close-up dust smoke layer. We play a little here. Now I'm changing those shadows to something brighter, so it blends better into background, more like smoke/destruction simulation. Masking, and now it looks like this. Color correction. We add another deform to improve the explosion a bit. You may need to experiment with settings. I like deform 2 best. It nicely lifts things upward. We need to mask it. We animate the mask. Now we put deform upward on the sky. We lacquer, distort, so the sky expands a little. We can strengthen the effect slightly. Now deform on the Meteor, simulating superheated air distortion. Like the air is being pushed away. And we can add a few more little details. Now we create sky backlight/rim light using Luma key arrow set to illuminance. We mask. This will be our backlight when the meteor passes. We see the building is a bit too sharp compared to the rest of the frame, so we add VFX. On the comet, we add glow. We adjust colors and gain again, so everything plays nicely. Now we add a bit of lens glow/bloom, but using a mask. We animate it. We can export the whole thing, best to PNG sequence. Once done, we reload the project and polish the final comp. We add another background. Again, we add glow/afterglow. We limit it a bit. We animate the mask again. We animate the mask again, obviously. And of course we change gain during its lifetime. Now we do some lens flares. You'll have to play with flares yourself. I improvised here a bit. Our background needs to match comp size. Lowering alpha a little gives better reception during the explosion. We add a bit more light. There's also X glow. A bit better than regular glow. You can get it for free from Reactor add-on. We change order a bit. Now camera shake. First one has to be at the first arriving shockwave. Quick boom, so quite fast shake. Then it has to decay. The second one corresponds to the approaching main wave. Shakes start and slowly build up until impact. In both shots, remember to enable motion blur in the transform nodes. And now we can export the scene, for example to MOV. We're in Resolve now. Here we just add color grading to the whole scene. I have a few ready looks here. Everyone can really create whatever look they prefer. I played around a bit. I have several different presets. But it all depends on what style you want. There's a nice plugin called Film Look Creator. Gives very cinematic feeling, so we can play with it. And if it looks good to us, we can render the whole thing to final file. If you'd like to buy any assets from my site, I'm giving you 15% off everything. Just enter this code in the I have a discount field. And if you'd like to hire me for VFX work, feel free to get in touch. Thanks for watching and see you next time. Bye.